All right, we are live. What's up, everybody? We are back again. Got a full house today. We got Petrie, we got Gino, we got Ross. You guys know him as North Fresh Kane up in Alaska. Um, so obviously we kind of got our teeth kicked in by Duke today. 45-21, I believe, was the final. I turned it off at that score. Um, so let's start out with what happened today. like Tell me what happened today because I'm furious. This is stupid.
Taylor, the
Uh,
turnovers. I think turnovers for sure. I mean, that's where the game starts and ends basically with turnovers. They had 8 total for the game. There was 3 interceptions, 5 fumbles lost, so 8 total for the game. That's 2 turnovers per quarter. 2 turnovers per quarter. Duke ends up getting 15 total drives off that game today. That's going to turn into points more often than not. I mean, 15 drives, even if you kick field goals every single time, that's
yeah,
45 points.
yeah, and our defense played pretty well, especially in the first half. But I feel like you hit the nail on the head in the sense that like a defense shouldn't have to protect the scoreboard when the offense turns the ball over 8 times, right? Like it's just unfeasible. Um, so the 45 points doesn't really matter to me. I'm not gonna throw Coach Steele under the bus over that specifically. Neither are defensive personnel. Like, what do you do with 8 turnovers, man? Have you guys ever seen that many in a game at any level? I mean, higher than high school. Have you seen it college or pros? 8 turnovers.
I personally don't believe that I ever have.
I don't think so
If
either.
if I have, it's been a while, man. You
Yeah,
know, it's not something that is regular weekly. That's for damn
yeah,
sure, especially at the FBS level.
yeah. So I guess let's shift the conversation a little bit then. I agree. Today was certainly turnovers was the big, like the reason why the outcome was the way it was. I guess let's talk about what we saw on the field besides the turnovers, and maybe we can find something to be a little bit encouraged by. Um, so, Gino, Ross, any thoughts on, uh, I guess, what we looked like despite the awful spell of turning the ball over?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm trying to find my words. Excuse me. I'm actually kind of going to renege on what you guys said. I don't think the defense played well, regardless of the turnover situation. We're still struggling to like play consistent downs against subpar teams. Like not even subpar, like absolutely inferior talented teams. Like there's a couple highlights, maybe a couple plays a drive where you're like, okay, maybe the defense is getting locked in, and then we have a wide open 4th and 9 or a 3rd and 15 where there's no middle coverage, there's no deep zone, there's no, what I mean, there's no want or drive or will to want to take the game, own accountability of it, take ownership, and do something that's going to change the course of the game. There's a couple players, that you could tell are putting their heart and soul into every snap, and
Yeah,
there's a couple that seem like they're just going there, they're just executing the plays, and they don't really care what the outcome of it is.
yeah,
Feed Colby Young, man. Just feed him all the possessions he can possibly humanly handle. Honestly, I mean, it's. I don't know who else is making plays for us. I don't know who else is consistently doing anything else for us. I know he can't come through all the time, but who else is doing it? This run game is it's atrocious right now. And when you don't have a run game in this Gaddis scheme, it makes it very hard on the quarterbacks. It really does. And it makes it hard on quarterbacks in general in any scheme if you don't have a good run game. But I'm blown away at this persistence of, hey, let's bring in Jalen Knight and let's run him up the gut on first down for 1 yard. I'm sick of that. Like I'm absolutely sick of seeing that. I want to see more creativity on first and second down. I'm constantly seeing us in third and long situations, and our first and second down play calling gets us there, and then we have a really really poor third play down call usually to go along right with it. So I mean, it's top to bottom, dude. It's not like it's a one side or one side screwing up on offense. No run game, no pass game. or one side actually performing and one side not. We're not getting any of that. We're just getting absolute randomness every single week. No consistency anywhere.
Yeah. So, I've been going back and forth with people on Twitter during the game and after. So do we feel like this is a schematic issue in the sense that, last year we were kind of run and shoot type offense with Rhett Lashley. Both Mario and Gaddis have had a much different approach or been involved in a much different approach in their careers. In the sense that they've both kind of been parts of like more of a power run scheme, smash mouth, still kind of shotgun, like college offense, right? I guess I want you guys to tell me how much of this is that our players do not fit our scheme right now on offense.
I don't know if it's really a scheme thing strictly. This goes in line with scheme. It's hand in hand with scheme, but it's more specifically play calling. Just as Fresh mentioned a little bit ago, no rhyme or reason. It seems like we're getting randomness week by week. It doesn't seem like situational play calling. Someone made a good point. There was that awkward kind of rolling out toward the left play on third down where Jake Garcia was kind of against his body, short side of the field, and it didn't work out. It was ended up being fourth down, and we went for it immediately. The offense stayed on the field. So you knew that they knew before that play even happened, we were in 4-down territory. Okay, so if we're in 4-down territory, then what in the fuck was with that play call on third down? What was that? Then what was that? You knew that if we don't get it here, we're going for it on fourth down no matter what. So why would you call something so awkward and choppy? It seems illogical.
Oh, that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything Petrie said. I mean, it's even in the off season, I liked a lot. I liked a lot of the hires that Mario made. I'm completely eating my words right now, but I was under the impression that we had the best staff in the state.
Yeah.
And even if we had, a lack of talent or a lack of production, I felt like that the staff that was put together, given their success in other places, could come in and kind of fix it and address a lot of the issues that we had. But that's clearly not the case. I mean, we have been outcoached in every single game we've played on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, in every single position group. I mean, I think the only semi-highlight you can make is that the D-line and linebackers look somewhat improved. And even then, they're still not looking good, and I am not a Gaddis fan in any way, shape, or form. Never was, never will be. I'm not a fan of the style of offense they're trying to bring here. But still, that doesn't even with some of the questionable play calling that's been passed, in recent weeks, like there's still the lack of execution, the lack of drive or want or will from these players to actually go out there and come down with the ball and do some things. Like Petrie saying, the run game is absolutely atrocious. It's abysmal. It is non-existent. It is no team in the entire country right now is scared of Miami in any way, shape, or form. I think the only thing they could potentially be scared of is that Tyler Van Dyke might shred them apart somehow. But even then, they know we're not going to go down there and score because they know our red zone play calling is horrible. They know that we're not going to execute in the red zone. They know that we're going to end up beating ourselves before a team has to worry about beating us.
There was something else that bothered me about this game, and it was the fact that the Duke quarterback getting 3 rushing touchdowns, and I don't know if it was just a game plan thing or we just simply don't want to put a spy on a quarterback. But, I mean, when do you get to the point where you got to go, hey, this guy's actually doing damage with his feet. We need somebody to keep an eye on him. Because I really didn't see that consistently anywhere. And to see him kind of just shred right through easily and get 3 scores on us, it's that's not Kane's defense, man. That ain't Kane's defense.
I don't know if it's defense at all.
I can jump on that, Fresh, too. I looked it up a little bit as well regarding like that. There wasn't anybody spying Duke's quarterback the entire game. He actually had 5.4 yards per attempt today. That's awful. Per passing attempt, he only had 5.4 yards per passing attempt today. So he's trying to be productive with his legs. Why is James Williams not dropping down? Why is Gilbert Frierson not getting more reps? even Avante Williams, I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's big enough to handle a quarterback. Like, even he might need to drop closer to the line of scrimmage if you want to have James Williams and Kinchins over the top in those more traditional safety kind of roles. Yeah. Somebody's got to be watching the quarterback when you know this kid cannot throw the football.
Can we get James Williams to wrap up on his tackles? You know, can I hope they can work with him a little bit on that? Can they please? I mean, these shoulder tackles. We're not in high school anymore. He's not. You know, I understand. In high school, he was so much physically bigger and athletically gifted than the players he was playing that you could just take that shoulder pop and knock them square on their ass 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
it's college, buddy. It ain't working like that no more, man. This guy needs to learn how to wrap up, and it would be a big deal for our defense if he did. Honestly, it would. We need that. We need that guy. Just like Kinchins or somebody else playing back there. We need to make sure that back line of the defense holds up and nobody gets past them, or it's big plays.
It's something that's been so perplexing about James Williams because he likes to go for the fumble. He wants to try to force the fumble, which I'm good with that. Let's hit some home runs. That's great. Let's go for fumbles. And he wants to get those big-time plays. So that is why it surprises me that he is not wrapping up and that he's going for the big body tackles, because you're more likely, if you're trying to force a fumble, you're more likely to wrap a guy up and strip it loose than you are to actually blow a guy away and him actually drop the ball because of how jarring the hit was. It's more likely for you to do a traditional form tackle and strip it than it is for you to just hit a guy so hard that he drops it.
Absolutely. And even at that rate, if you're getting them up and you're holding them up, teammates can come in and assist.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd still like to point out the overall, in my opinion, the overall downfall of everything is we still have a very bad lack of coaching. Coaching is still subpar in every facet, from game management to rotating personnel to just execution to everything. I mean, there's no reason why that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is a reason why, but there should be no reason why that every game we played this season on both sides of the ball. It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't make sense. And regardless if this is Mario's first year or not, 8 turnovers is fireable. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Nick Saban.
Yeah,
fireable.
So, on that note, I want to talk something that's a little more big picture, but it has a lot to do with this year as well. So over the last 4 seasons, the transfer portal era, obviously we've only had 2 head coaches, but we've essentially had rosters built by 3 different head coaches. If you're counting, the Mark Richt roster that Manny Diaz inherited for his first season. So I want to get into why it is that seemingly every year, the majority of our impact players are transfers. Why is it that, being in South Florida, having relatively good recruiting classes, I mean, I know we haven't been elite, but we've been upper tier, at least like second tier recruiting classes for the majority of recent memory. Why is it that we are letting guys like KJ Osborne from Buffalo, we're letting, Colby Young from Lackawanna College, we're having Jalen Phillips, who was retired. I mean, granted, he was a blue chipper, but he was retired from football. We're having these guys come in and establish themselves not only as leaders on the field, but it worries me the trend that they're also becoming the leaders in the locker room. KJ Osborne is a very specific example. And it's like, why is this dude coming down from Buffalo and he's not only pushing people around on the field, but he's also immediately the leader in the locker room? That's absurd to me. We're the University of Miami. Why is it that we're relying on Lackawanna College and the University of Buffalo to give us guys that are excellent on the field and off the field in the locker room?
Man, first off, give Colby Young his flowers for coming down here and pushing around a bunch of South Florida kids that are on the roster who have been juiced up since they were playing flag football as middle schoolers. Yes. That's first part of that answer. And the second part of your answer about why are the transfers doing it is because they haven't been gassed up since the time they were playing flag football when they were in middle school. I'm sorry. a lot of these South Florida kids, they do appear to be divas in some ways. The truly elite kids are going to find their way through, whether they go to Miami or whether they go to anywhere else. They're going to make their way to the NFL. You've got your kids, your Dalvin Cooks. You've got your Duke Johnsons. You've got your Greg Rousseaus. South Florida kids who genuinely do make it to the pros, and the list goes on. That's 3 off the top of my head. The truly great kids are going to make it up into the next level, but too many of them are gassed up from being 4 stars because they did a nice catch in a 7-on-7 tournament one time when they were 16 years old. So
I'm in the same boat with you, Petrie. I was gonna say before you jumped in, I was gonna say that the sense of entitlement in the South Florida top prospects these days is just abysmal, and you tie that in with not being able to develop, foster a good culture, and the biggest disadvantage we're at is Miami does not have a foundation. We're thinking getting a couple big name hires in the program, throwing some money at a problem, and that is just going to change everything overnight. And we have no foundation. We haven't built anything. We don't have facilities. We don't have. You can talk about the stadium, whatever it is. We don't have a college atmosphere, right? We don't have a good student population. We don't have a dominant fan base organic to the location of where Miami is, where we come up and we show out and we support these students on a day-to-day basis. All we have is these kids that come in here, regardless of their want or will to want to perform or compete. They have this sense of entitlement that I'm a high-rated prospect coming to this team. I'm going to walk on. I don't have to play hard. I don't have to receive coaching. I don't have to take criticism, and I'm just going to go out there and do what I do until I go get my bag in the NFL.
I think a lot of the issues that have come down to our players especially is development early in their years while they're at the University of Miami. You can't expect guys to shine if they have improper development early on, especially for 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row, possibly. You can't expect guys to shine. So what does it tell you when a transfer comes in? It tells us that he was trained by somebody else early in his career and obviously trained better than what we've trained our own players. That's what that tells me.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
And to go on to that, Fresh, because there's a lot of guys who get those 4- and 5-star rankings off of natural abilities like size and athleticism. But if they're going somewhere,
they get them off 7-on-7 stuff, dude.
If they're going somewhere else and they're breaking their bad, like immature youthful habits before they really physically develop, then all of a sudden you got these transfer kids who might not have been the biggest kid in high school, might not have been the fastest kid in high school, but they learned footwork, they learned proper technique, they learned proper hand placement, and then all of a sudden they're 20 years old and now they're 210 pounds, 220 pounds, 6'1" or 2. Okay, well now they've finally come into their body, but they don't have all of these bad habits.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about having a chip on your shoulder in football. I honestly believe that. There's something to be said about that. Guys who want to earn, improve themselves every single snap, no matter what their assignment is.
I think this is such a tough pill for me to swallow just because we're not just assessing one coaching staff or even 2. And granted, the story of Mario Cristobal and his tenure at the University of Miami is in its infancy, right? So I don't want to speak with too definitive of terms about what he's doing. But clearly we have a 7-game sample size. It's very subpar. And we are seeing some of these the coaching malpractice, the fruits of coaching malpractice. We're seeing it again. And dude, it's tough for me to swallow. It is so difficult for me to wrap my head around that 3 different coaching staffs, 2 of them being, Mark Richt was a great coach. I don't know if I'd say his staff was great here at Miami. And then, this staff is loaded. It's what is going on? Is there something in the water? Is it an example of college football has kind of left what the University of Miami is in the dust? Gino brought up some good points about just kind of the where University of Miami fits in, that we don't have a big student body, the facilities, stuff like that. Are we trying to squeeze blood from a stone? Is my question. I don't really know where to go with it, because it seems like we get the answers every offseason, and yet here we are. Ross and I were joking about this. We did a post game for Mark Rogers last year together, and It feels like deja vu right now.
Totally. Completely.
Well, Jordan, I think that you and I talked about this last week too, exactly to that right into the wind with that, is that that's what Miami feels like these days. I don't know if they're that team that we're like, oh, are they going to win the ACC this year? What kind of New Year's Six bowl game are we going to be playing in? They're the team that plays a nice, tough game against North Carolina, and they ultimately come up short, and you're like, oh, that was a nice, tough game that they played. Oh, they managed to beat Virginia Tech. That was a neat experience. That's what Miami is at this point. That's what Miami is, and that's what the wins do for the fans at this point in time. You look at Carolina, you're like, oh, well, we barely lost to North Carolina. At least the offense looked kind of okay. I don't know, you know. That's the team now. That's what they are right now.
A neat experience. I love that term right there, dude, for a W against a Virginia Tech right there. A neat experience. That is exactly what the hell it is. It's become that and unique all at the same time, just because we don't know what we're going to see. Like we talked about, 10 minutes ago, we don't know what we're going to see. We don't know if we're going to see the penalty-ridden team. We don't know if we're going to see the turnover-ridden team. We don't know if we're going to see the team that can't run. We don't know if we're going to see the team that can't pass. We don't freaking know. We don't know. It's got to be maddening for somebody like Mario Cristobal to have done what he's done in his career, be up at Oregon, play with all these amazing players, get all these incredible recruits, find some kind of success, and then come back home with all this hype, and it's just not there. It's just not there. The energy's not there. I spoke with you guys earlier that I talked with the 2023 recruit. He told me that he felt like our his words to me is he felt like our players gave up at sometimes. Yeah. And that's coming from a recruit that's committed to the University of Miami. He said his commitment is solid, doesn't change anything, but he hates seeing that. He said he hates seeing players give up, and that's what he felt like happened today.
I mean, that's
the Ouroboros. That's the snake eating itself of this here. Like if the offense does not turn it into points, they turn the ball over, give the other team opportunities. Defense gets discouraged because they're like, man, we can't get off the field on these motherfuckers right here. So now the defense is discouraged because the offense can't do it. Offense is already down on themselves, and they're upset as well. Again, the Ouroboros of it, the snake eating itself, the problems beget other problems, and all of a sudden you have a nightmare on your hands. What's up? What went on with today?
Yeah. So I guess let's change gears just a little bit in the sense of me and Petrie kind of broached this idea last week. We brought up the schedule, we talked about it, and I said, wow, 2-4 seems extremely possible the rest of the way. I even kind of squeaked in a little bit of 1-5 maybe. So Miami Hurricanes Twitter, I don't know if it's just our fan base or if it's all of them. We have a tendency to overreact both to positive and negative, right? We get too gassed when things are good. We get too down when things are bad. So I want to discuss what the proper reaction should be if this team goes 4-8 or 5-7, which seems likely in my opinion. I think 5-7 is a very likely outcome. I think 4-8 is in the realm of possibility for sure. I mean, Virginia beat Georgia Tech on Thursday. I wasn't sure we're going to beat Georgia Tech. I'm not sure. I kind of penciled Virginia in as a win. But man, I'm just not sure anymore.
I just want to, because Jordan, we'll contextualize it, because a lot of people don't like the doom and gloom when you say 5-7, because it sounds like you're just talking terribly about the team. But let's just put it in context for everybody.
Yeah.
We are currently 3-4. We are already below 500. We're currently 3-4. UVA, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So you still feel pretty good about UVA and Georgia Tech. So do you want to call that 2 wins if you want to, right?
Maybe.
I feel not so great about Florida State, Clemson, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So even if you're saying like I don't feel rock solid about those 2 against Virginia and Georgia Tech, and I don't feel great about any individual one of Florida State, Clemson, and Pitt, let's just say 2-3, right?
Yeah.
That's 5-7 for the season right there.
Yeah.
And I don't feel great about that.
Yeah. So, Gino, let's start with you. If how should we respond to this? Like, what narrative is proper coming out of this? Because we just spent $80 million on Mario Cristobal over 10 years. We have the new AD Dan Radakovich. We have facilities coming. Like, a plan is in motion. It's it's a little bumpy right now. But yeah, like, what should the narrative be? What is the proper narrative for this offseason in a way that is healthy and it's realistic and it's not overly optimistic, nor is it pessimistic?
I got to choose my words carefully here because I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I think Miami needs a really, really heavy dose of some chemotherapy. I think we need to burn everything inside the building and see what survives because those are the ones you want to keep on the team. You need to destroy this parasite that is embedded inside this culture right now, that it's okay to show up on a weekly basis and play like what we just did. And, it's kind of like Coach Cristobal said in his post-game interview today. He's like, he was asked a question if players were quitting in the fourth quarter. And he said, we need to go back and watch that on tape because if that's the case, then they won't be playing here very much longer. And it's things like that, that need to be identified and addressed and fixed. And it's going to take time. We're an impatient fan base. I mean, hell, we've been mediocre and awful for 22 years. What's another year or two to, see if there's at least a trend upwards, whether or not it's going to take us to the national championship one day, who knows? Likely not. But, if it can at least change the culture of the program and get us to becoming a good football team again, maybe not a great one, then I'd be content with that. But I think we need to finish the season as best we can, address a lot of issues in the offseason, get the people out that don't need to be there, even if it's some of our quote unquote best players right now, get them out of the building, get them out of the locker room, let these new guys come in, attack the transfer portal, and rebuild the foundation. I mean, we have to build the foundation. The foundation needs to be that we need to have like the mental fortitude to go in there on a weekly basis and compete physically and mentally, regardless of what the outcome says on the scoreboard. I'd rather lose a game to Duke knowing that every single player played to the best of their ability and left everything out on the line, and there was no excuses to come from it. But that's not the case right now.
Yeah, so I didn't watch the post game. You saying it right there is me hearing that for the first time. I love that Coach Cristobal said that, and what I love even more is that I believe that there will be action behind that. That to me is the reason why I was pretty vocal about how I thought Lane might be a better coach. And then after we hired Mario, I was like, yeah, this is great. It was the right situation. But that is the one reason why I think Mario could be the best thing for this program is because I believe when he says that. Like, one, Manny Diaz never would have said that. And two, if he did, it would have been a lie. Like Manny Diaz is not sacrificing a win this year for a healthier culture next year, right? Like that was kind of the big problem that we were dealing with for the last 3 years, is that it was all pop and no sizzle, or whatever the saying is, all style, no substance. I believe that Mario will do that, and I hope that he does. And you're right, it could be painful. I don't want to single any guys out hypothetically just because I don't think that'd be fair of me. But it could be like, hey, here's a kid who was a high level 4-star. Here's a kid that was a 5-star. Here's a kid that was third on the team in tackles this year. Or, I'm just throwing that out. No one's specific, but like when we start seeing those, that caliber of people getting cut off the roster, I actually think it'll be a really positive thing. I think it'll be a very painful. It made me think I have a really big, beautiful rose bush out in front of my townhome, and my wife and I just absolutely mangled that thing this weekend. It's we probably cut 30 roses off of it, and now it's just like a little dead shrub looking thing. But I mean, maybe that is what this roster needs, right? And we did it so that it'll give us another 100 roses next year, Um, so it just needs a good pruning, man. We need to cut it out. I like I know you have a medical background, Gino, so I actually like the chemotherapy reference.
I like what Mel Tucker did, not this season but last season. I like what he did. He was blunt with the players on this team, and like I said, I know things aren't working out great here, but I'll have a finish to this. Don't worry. Mel Tucker letting these guys know that you're not going to get snaps in this system. You're just simply not going to get playing time here. If you have dreams of playing in the NFL, if you have dreams of getting more snaps just in general in college, you're going to need to find another school to go to. And he was blunt. I mean, absolutely blunt with them. Brought in a ton of transfer players, found Kenneth Walker, that kind of stuff. Now, while that stuff didn't work out long-term for them, the hope that I see for us is that Mario Cristobal and our staff are better recruiters than the guys who are up at Michigan State. So I think that we can take that mentality and actually and truly rebuild it back up, not just burn it and just pray and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But we can actually go out and burn it and then bring in 4 and 5 star guys to start to rebuild it. The genuine 4 to 5 star guys, and develop them early. Develop them properly early. That's what I gotta see, dude. That's what I gotta see. Turn and burn. Get rid of the dead weight, and let's go into the future. It's time to go into the future. If we made all these moves, spent all this money, let's truly invest in the future then.
So I want to kind of put a bow on what we've just talked about in regards to my original question, is what is the appropriate narrative, that is not overly emotional. It's not overly optimistic nor pessimistic. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're all kind of in agreement that it's like, we made this investment in Mario. We need to give it time to produce its fruit properly, right? I guess this year maybe we just have to chalk it up to him getting to know the roster, getting to know the program, to seeing so that he can actually make his first steps in towards building a healthy program next offseason. I mean, does anyone have any issues with that, or is that? I mean, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it too.
And this might sound weird, and I don't ever wish injury upon anyone, but there is a small part of me, and I know a lot of. First of all, I really hope that a lot of Kane fans were eating their words a couple weeks ago when they were talking about benching TVD permanently for Jake Garcia.
Yeah.
That is not only the stupidest thing I've ever heard from this fan base, but they've never been more wrong in their life. Looking at, I mean, there's no injury report on what happened at TVD, but if anyone that has a brain looks like it's something, in the upper shoulder, right? Whether it's bone, clavicle, or anything like that, rotator cuff, something, right?
Yeah.
So let's say TVD does go in and he's ineligible to play the rest of the year, right? This season completely tanked his draft stock. I think a good thing for this team would be to have TVD come back next year, so we're not seeing a battle between Jakuri, Rashada, and, Jake. Not saying that none of them are good enough, but they're not better than Tyler Van Dyke. So salvaging a season, rebuilding that foundation, getting some better players and everything come in, and have Tyler Van Dyke come back to kind of reestablish that, better season going forward potentially. I think it'd be really, really good for this football team. I'm not saying I hope he's injured and can't come back.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind seeing Tyler Van Dyke come back on better terms next year.
Yep.
I have a question for you guys, just by any chance. Do you guys know if Jakuri was not playing today at all or not? Or was
he got no, Jakuri Brown did play. He got a few little plays called for him. But the problem is that it's always a designed run. Every single time they have him in, it's a designed run. And it's great that you would ask that question. I posted about this earlier in the game. I was like, there's really no point in having these Jakuri Brown packages if you're not going to let him throw it every once in a while. Seriously. he's gotta be allowed to throw the freaking ball. If they know he's running the ball every single time, you have and I'm not making a direct comparison, but I'm just making the statement here, like the Cam Newton effect, where it's like sometimes I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm more athletic than you, I'm going to get the yardage, I'm going to get the first down. That's great with Ja'Cory Brown, and he has that kind of like it factor about him. But that only goes so far when they truly do actually know that you're running the ball every single time.
Yeah, we don't hide it, we don't disguise it very well at all. And the thing is that it's not even that Ja'Cory has to come in and complete a pass. What Ja'Cory can do is he can come in with his rocket arm and take a shot and just kind of, put the safeties and DBs on notice that, hey, this dude's got a freaking cannon for an arm. We got to watch out for him when he comes in, because if he gets one of these over the top on us, these guys will burn us, especially a Brashard Smith type. They'll burn them. So
they had a little bit of
at least take that shot to make the defense honest. That in
they
my
had a little bit of a trickeration kind of play where Van Dyke, I can't remember if it was like a pitch or if he like just did a quick lateral pass to Ja'Cory Brown, but then Ja'Cory Brown like ran outside as if to take off, and he did run it. But that's a great opportunity for a double pass. You know what I mean? If that's what you want to do, he's athletic, and Ja'Cory does have the arm. He's a good thrower of the football. He might need to work on polishing the game a little bit, but he's got a good arm. He can throw it.
Yeah, and that's my point, is just putting the DBs on notice. To me, it's always important to put the DBs on notice about speed and about quarterbacks who have the capability of putting the ball past them, because it puts them on their heels. And when you put the DBs on their heels, they're not making plays in front of them nearly as better. That's when you start getting yards after catch. You start seeing them getting weird angles and all that kind of stuff. They start second guessing things. That's what I want. I want them to second guess every time we snap that ball. I don't want them to know what's coming.
So I want to talk QBs. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. The TVD and Jake situation. Gino, I think you hit it on the head. I've in my life, I've broken my collarbone and separated my AC joint, and as soon as TVD went down on his arm, I could feel it. I was just like, that sucks. Yeah, and so I think it's a very reasonable expectation that he could miss some time, could be some extended time with whatever we go, whatever he has. We don't know yet. What does that mean for next year? You guys know my personality. I like to be a little flippant sometimes. So my question is, is Jake Garcia more likely to be on the Hurricanes or UCLA next year?
I think if you have to look at it today, if Tyler Van Dyke comes back, there's no reason Jake stays.
Yeah.
Zero reason whatsoever. Now with Rashada coming in, Curry, I have my reservations about Curry. I won't say him on here. Nothing negative whatsoever, but when you have a quarterback battle, it's Tyler Van Dyke, and then there's everyone else. There isn't a close second on the roster right now, and there won't be next year. There won't be a close second next year either, regardless of if Jake transfers or not. None of the other quarterbacks we're bringing in, and none of the quarterbacks we have on roster are even in the same category of talent.
So I would go. I want like maybe a little slight counterpoint here, but what if Jake Garcia just had his moment this year for Tyler Van Dyke, like how Tyler Van Dyke had his moment with De'Ara King last year? De'Ara King, very unfortunate injury. He went down. He was the clear-cut number one starter. Tyler Van Dyke came in. Correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline here. He struggled a little bit in the first game against Carolina. I think he also struggled against Florida State. But then he lights the world on fire the last 6 games and completely dominates. What happens if Jake Garcia, similar situation, Tyler Van Dyke, clear quarterback 1, goes down with a crazy, unfortunate injury. Garcia comes in, struggles, as he did today, and then starting next week, he lights the world on fire. And then, the Canes run the table and win the rest of their games. I don't know.
So counter to your counter. I do think Jake's a talented quarterback. He has no fear whatsoever, and he's just going to let that thing fly. He doesn't really care about if he gets an interception, because he knows next drive he has the confidence to go down there and make it a touchdown instead. The difference maker is that to what you're saying is I don't think there's going to be that bridge in between those two moments, solely because of even when De'Ara King was playing, Tyler Van Dyke was playing phenomenal in practice. Jake Garcia has the same issues you saw today in every single practice. He throws multiple interceptions in practice on a weekly basis. He makes bad decisions in practice. He has a hell of an arm. he can sling it with the best of them. He has an incredible amount of talent, but his decision making is what's holding him back. So I think it's less likely, not impossible, but I think it's less likely we see that transition from De'Aaron King to Tyler Van Dyke like we would see from Jake to Tyler.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, I've been drinking for 6 hours, so.
It's just when you evaluate, what both players have done when they were in that QB2 role. There was all indications when Tyler was the QB2 just through scrimmage that he has the intangibles, he has the ability to go out there and be a difference maker.
Yeah.
Not saying Jake doesn't. This is in no way, shape, or form a shot at him, but he is consistently playing like how he played today in practice on a consistent basis. So there's less emphasis or less trust, I guess you say, that we can maybe expect him to make that bridge.
So I totally like. I really like that point that you made, Gino, and I think it's a great point. To me, one of the things I like about Jake Garcia, and this is hard, if not impossible, to quantify, but he has a certain moxie about him that
You love him.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, is like this moxie, we've seen it in a lot of quarterbacks, especially in the NFL, like the Brett Favre effect, the Tony Romo effect. John Elway had it a little bit. And I'm not necessarily comparing him to those guys, because the problem is that we hear about the guys with that attitude that are successful, but how many guys did that hold, did that like gunslinger mentality hold them back their whole career? I mean, we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick bounce everywhere,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say that he was unsuccessful. Like, there's probably a lot of dudes that have that attitude that got less opportunities than Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Well, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like Jameis Winston, he'll let that ball fly.
Yeah.
Manziel, Baker, they let the
Yeah.
ball go sometimes, even if it's not right there.
So,
but to your point, they have not been the more successful ones.
Yeah. So part of me wants to see it. Like I guess I should separate my brain and my heart right here, and that my brain loves what Gino just said. I think it's very sound. I think it's very reasonable, rational, probably likely. But man, part of me just wants to see us turn Jake loose for a game and see what happens.
Well, I want to see it.
Yeah.
Like, prove me wrong. But I mean, again, I love the kid, his attitude. His parents are awesome. He's beyond incredibly talented. Regardless of what the stats show, the dude can stand in the pocket, take a hit, and still drop a dime. But he can also stand in a clean pocket and make the worst pass you've ever seen.
He had a very nice escape earlier in the game. A Duke defensive lineman got right on him, got hands on the football, and Jake, with the strength, actually ripped away from the defender, sidestepped a few more, and he threw the ball. I think it went incomplete, but not important. The play of that moment was the fact that a defensive lineman, he shed him like a man, like, just get off me. And then he, was able to sidestep out and still make a throw happen.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I don't think Jake's the kind of guy that no matter – he can go in there and throw 11 interceptions in a game, and he won't get rattled. He'll be the same player every single drive.
Yeah, it's like he's got it. I'm not expecting Peyton Manning out there, but he's got like some kind of an it factor to him.
Yeah. Could you imagine him slinging the ball like that in a program, one, with elite talent on the edges around him, and two, with the discipline and infrastructure to kind of allow for those mistakes, right? Because Arcane's team isn't good enough that when he throws an interception that we can just kind of shake it off, right? Our defense isn't good enough. Our offense isn't good enough. But, could you imagine him at, Alabama, for instance, just slinging it all there?
Jake Garcia at Ole Miss would be, or even Tennessee next year.
It'd be like 7 touchdowns, 2 or 3 picks a game.
Oh my gosh!
Throwing the ball 65 times.
Yep, just slinging it.
And
hey boys, I hate to cut you off here, but I do got to get running. I got to get to the other post game show and discuss the madness once again elsewhere.
Yeah, well,
I do appreciate it, dude. Jordan, thank you so much for letting me jump on here, man.
For sure. So we're gonna wrap up in a few minutes. So tell everyone where they should go after we're done.
Head over to the Scoop on the U. It's on YouTube.
Cool.
You can go to Paul's He's the host. Go to his Twitter. It's El Jefe Scoop. He's at El Jefe Scoop. You can get the link from there to follow it, or you can go right to Miami Hurricanes Talk on Twitter, and it'll go there, or the Scoop on the U. It'll take you right to it. So that's where we'll be, man.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, Ross.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Later, Fresh.
So
love Fresh, man.
Yeah, I love his insight. We had a good panel today. I'm really digging it.
I had a good time.
Yeah. So is there anything else on the docket that you guys want to discuss before we wrap up, or should we call it a Saturday so we can go do things to uplift ourselves rather than dwell on this negativity?
I got a little bit more dwelling to do. Third week in a row. Jordan, you and I have talked about this 3 weeks in a row. I did tweet about it a little bit earlier, but it's another week of being reassured that Michigan does not miss Gaddis at all. They are off this week, but they are currently 7-0, so they're undefeated. And this isn't a perfect statistic here because I'm not taking into account special teams or defensive scores, but I'm just saying Michigan's averaging 42.7 points per game. Your Miami Hurricanes are 3-4, averaging 29.2. That's like 2 touchdowns. That's 2 touchdowns worth of difference right there.
I mean, take away Bethune-Cookman
take away Bethune-Cookman's the only one where we really dialed up anybody. I looked at the numbers earlier. We haven't really. I don't think we've been like so. Michigan's averaging 42.7. I am not positive without looking it up if we've hit 42 at any point this season.
No.
I'm saying, unless I'm mistaken, I was pretty sure no. So they're averaging 42.7, almost 43. I don't think we've ever hit 42. We are averaging just 29 points per game, and that's with 70 against Bethune-Cookman, I think it was. So real numbers, probably more accurately around the 20 range.
Yeah, it's like 20.3 against Power 5 opponents.
Yeah.
It's pathetic.
Against teams that don't even print their names on the backs of the jerseys. We're really good against those teams.
Hey, we were one of those teams for a few years.
Yeah, they might have to go back to it.
So where do we go from here then, I guess, for the Miami Hurricanes? Like, is it just you just let it play out this year and try to take some nuggets of optimism into next year?
I mean, trying to be optimistic. I'm going back to it, right? So we're 3-4 again. Virginia, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Pitt, right? I feel pretty good about Virginia, UVA, and Georgia Tech. So I feel like 2 wins there. We've got Florida State, Clemson, and Pitt. Florida State rivalry game. You get up for a rivalry game. Maybe you surprise some people. You win that one. That's 3 wins. I do think we lose to Clemson no matter what. I don't feel good about that game whatsoever. Yeah. And then Pitt, I think we have them at home. And we've had Pitt's number for a few years, if I'm not mistaken. We've won against them a couple years in a row. So I'm just saying we're 3-4. 5 games left, not predicting this, but if we do go 4-1, that puts us at 7-5.
Get out of here, man.
So I'm saying, if we have a tremendous down the stretch run here, we will be barely 500, which is not great. We would qualify for a bowl, I guess.
I think for that to happen, I brought up Brett Favre and Tony Romo. I think Jake Garcia would have to be channeling non-law-breaking Brett Favre.
Oh, okay. So you're telling me that Peyton Manning himself would have to come and play quarterback, throwing the ball to Randy Moss and handing the ball off to Barry Sanders, right? Yeah, maybe, for us to go forward. I don't even know if they could overcome these culture issues,
Yeah, no, I think it would take a Herculean effort. I'm not sure, man. If I was a betting man, and I agree for the most part that I think Tyler Van Dyke is a better quarterback right now. I think he is very much more of the archetype, the prototype of what the modern quarterback is. So for us to do that, I think it would have to be Jake, and I think it would have to be Jake just absolutely slinging that thing and just be on a hot streak. I just don't think we're good enough across the board, man. I think we'd need one guy to be so blazingly good that like it's on ESPN every day.
Jake Garcia to Colby Young, the new connection is starting.
It could be, dude. I mean, Colby Young is amazing. I think
literally anyone to Colby Young, please.
Yeah, I could get out there and throw, just put it up for him.
I don't know. It's like I said, we're not playing great teams down the stretch. I know that we ourselves are not great teams, and I don't want to just assume that we're going to bounce back, because you have to consider likelihoods. The kind of team that is 3-4 with the first part of our schedule is not the kind of team that goes 4-2 with the last 6, or 3-2 over the last 5. It's just not that kind of team.
Yeah. I agree.
So do we finish maybe like 5-7? I think we're 3-4 right now. Like I said, I like Virginia and Georgia Tech. That could be 2 right there. That gets us to 5. And then do we win 1 or 2 maybe out of 3 from Florida State, Clemson, and Pitt? Florida State, you get up for a rivalry game. Clemson, you probably lose either way. Pitt, toss up.
So maybe I'm waxing a little pessimistic right here, but I am penciling Clemson, Florida State, and Pitt as losses. Like, I got it penciled in.
Okay, so if you pencil those as losses, but do you assume that we beat Virginia and Georgia Tech? Do you count those as wins in the same capacity as you count the other 3 losses?
Give me 1 as a win and 1 as a toss-up.
Shit, dog. That puts us at 4-8, maybe 3-9.
I know.
I also think a dog walk by those teams would be the best thing for this program. Have these kids eat a slice of humble pie.
Yeah. But
today was a big old slice, I'll tell you that.
So
I thought we were good enough to beat Duke, but clearly we're mistaken.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this because the Canes, what is it? I think 5-7 is our worst season in the last however many years. And I know that we clown Florida State and Florida that they've gone 3-8 or 3-9 or 4-8 or whatever. But they've sure bounced back better than we have in the past. So maybe it's not as horrible. I mean, maybe that is our safety net, as Canes fans, that we're like, man, at least we've never gone 4-8. But maybe it's not as bad as we're thinking.
Let me wax optimistic. Maybe Mario Cristobal is having his Jimmy Johnson year. Jimmy Johnson was not here for very long, and I think it was like this is a dumb stat. It's like he lost 8 games in his career at Miami, or it was like 8 or 10 games in his career at Miami, and like 6 of them were in his first year. 5 or 6 of them were in his first year.
I'm certainly open to that. I am certainly open to that. I don't know if this.
I'm just being optimistic. Like I said, waxing optimistic, drinking for 6 hours, it leads to some things.
No, but here's the thing though, is like, if Mario is gonna work out, like we talked about culture coaches versus scheme coaches, right? We've talked about that a lot. If Mario is gonna work out, it's probably gonna look something like that. It's probably going to be something where we take our lumps. And, maybe even next year is more of the, just kind of burning off all the crud on the roster, right?
Maybe next season becomes what a lot of fans thought this season was going to be. No?
No.
All right, Gino. No, Gino, I'm not talking about the fans that were saying 12-0 natty first year. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking the fans that were like, hey, 9-3, respectable bowl, maybe we win.
I mean, I was one of those guys. I anticipated 9-3 as our ceiling.
Yeah.
I thought 7 wins was our floor, 9 wins was our ceiling. Optimistic for 10-2.
Yeah.
A few people said 8-4 until proven otherwise, and
well,
they are being proven otherwise right now.
Dude,
it's not looking like 8-4.
Here's what I think, right? So I think Mario needs to eat a slice of humble pie too, because Mario is very he's very cup heavy when it comes to holding his coordinator's hands and says, "You will do things my way. I know it's your offense, your defense, and you will do it my way." I mean, just look at what Oregon's offense has been able to do success-wise this year without him compared to what he had last year. Like, Dan Lanning didn't inherit any better of a roster than what Mario left it as. And there's already been success there on the offensive side of the ball. Again, not a Josh Gaddis fan. I don't think the scheme fits what we have. I mean, speed and space is good, but we don't have speed and we don't have space because we can't create separation. I think a home run higher.
I just checked that score as you mentioned it. Oregon has 24 points right now. It's not even halftime.
Yeah. Again, I think Mario needs to step back, let his coordinators do what he does, and do what they do best, and not hold their hand and say, "Hey, I want to be 1987, 1991 Miami and run the ball down people's throats." And I don't care how pretty it looks, because we're not built for that, and we're never going to be that. Yeah. And great defense has been replaced by great offense in college football. So if you don't, doesn't matter. You can have a great defense and only allow 31 points a game, but if you're scoring 45, it's irrelevant. So I think there needs to be a coordinator change, not because of a lack of production or a lack of ability from Gaddis, but because you need a coordinator who's going to get the ball in your playmakers' hands and not scheme up plays and tell your quarterbacks to not make reads and only throw to a specific individual.
Yeah.
So it needs to be a spread offense until we get the people in that can translate back to what we want our identity to be.
Unless that specific individual is Colby Young, then throw it to him every time. I don't care.
Yeah. Just hand the ball off to him. Have, all
whatever
of it.
You got to do.
Yeah. So, Gino, I said this to Petrie, but going with your idea of Mario eating a slice of humble pie, I've often thought about kind of how Nick Saban, hires Lane Kiffin and Lane forces Nick to modernize his offense, right? For a long time, they did the single back thing. And then Lane Kiffin comes through and power struggle. They ended up doing it Lane's way, and it worked. And Alabama is a spread offense forever now. I've kind of just been hoping that next year, the year after, something will encourage Mario to eat that slice of humble pie, realize that he needs to modernize some of his philosophies. Because like I said, I do believe him when, I think what he said about, trimming the roster of guys that quit. I believe him when he said that. I think he means it, and I think it's the right thing. We need better X's and O's. We just need better X's and O's, and we need it to make sense with our personnel too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And we need it to make sense with our recruiting base as well. I mean, like South Florida does not churn out offensive linemen. It does not.
This is what's hard for me about, like, when we say it's like an X's and O's thing, and sort of like how we were saying, like a scheme thing earlier. I don't mind the scheme. I don't mind the plays themselves. I don't mind the X's and O's themselves. I mind when and where they're called. Like when they run the right play at the right point in the field at the right context of the game, I'm like, wow, that was a very sharp play call. That was a good design. And even the plays that don't really go anywhere are good plays. They're sharp designs. It's just you're calling at the completely wrong time. Like, why would you call that play in this moment? The defense is anticipating what exactly you're about to do. So the plays themselves, the X's and O's themselves, that's not the issue. It's when you're freaking calling them,
Yeah.
I go back to, I made the same point earlier, that weird rolling out third down, short side of the field, rolling to the left across Jake Garcia's body. He looks so awkward out there. And it ended up being an incomplete pass or a short completion. It was short. It ended up being fourth down. And then and you were going forward on fourth down anyway. So what was with that weird ass call on third down?
Or running 2 inside zones under 10 minutes left, down 17. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the other thing too, man. Gaddis has to understand, man. The name of the game these days is throwing the football. That's the name of the game.
What did you say that people were calling him on Twitter last week? Tan Enos?
Oh, Tan Enos, yeah.
Oh my God.
They called him Tan Enos. I was like, that's fucked up. But anyway, I digress. He seems like a nice guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big proponent, and Mario has big plans, and he's a smart guy. I mean, he makes some really dumb calls sometimes, but I'm really hoping that someone in the staff is going to get promoted up to a role that I really want next year. I'll let you guys. Someone on the offensive side.
You want Coach Field to be the offensive coordinator. I got it.
I want
I get
Frank.
it. I see the vision.
Okay, interesting.
You want to see what?
I want Frank Ponce to be the offense coordinator.
Ponce to be the offensive coordinator. That's not terrible. He was the OC at App State,
Yeah.
right? I'm
So-
pretty sure.
Averaging
That's
4.5 points a game over 3 years.
interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll have to look more into him. So I don't even know why, and I'm not a South Florida native, nor have I ever lived there. But for whatever reason, I've only ever heard negative things about him in terms of recruiting and his interpersonal skills. I don't know why. No one's ever told me exactly why, but they're just like, no, he's whatever. So he was like the one guy that I was gonna riot if we hired his OC, but
He was one of the guys I wanted as OC.
okay. And see, I really respect and trust your judgment. So if you say it's gonna work, I'll be open minded to it. But
I have no idea it's going to work. I mean, flip a coin and hope it lands on what you want. But
yeah,
I mean,
but you know what I mean. I'm just saying
yeah,
if you say it's a good thing, I'm open minded to it.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah. So I don't know. Have you guys ever heard that? Have you guys ever heard that people don't like him?
I have not. No.
No,
Okay.
that's not something I've heard.
I'll have to figure out where that came from. But it was like, I think it was when it wasn't this time around. I think it was earlier when like there was some rumors that Manny was thinking about hiring him or something like that.
Mm.
And I had like a number of people all in the same week DMing me like, no, this guy sucks. I was like, okay. But it wasn't for football reasons. It was for not football reasons. So
Probably also the same people that thought that we poached Gaddis from Michigan.
yeah.
The guy who wasn't going to be. The guy who
Meanwhile, they let him walk, and
He literally
their
wasn't
offense
gonna be
is
up there.
scoring 2 more touchdowns per game than Miami currently. So
Well, so I have learned my lesson from Gaddis, and not that me, I don't mean anything, but I personally have learned my lesson. When you have a CEO head coach like Mario, or you have, let's say, you have a Manny Diaz who's a defense guy and he's hiring someone for offense, never again will I throw my support behind somebody who has not completely managed every detail of that side of the ball.
Yep.
And been successful at it. I really liked Rhett Lashley. Great human, pretty good OC, ups and downs, but he came from the Sonny Dykes tree. Do we actually know who was, I'm sure Sonny Dykes had the final say on offense at SMU. Dan Enos at Alabama, obviously he was a quarterback's coach. People tried to convince everyone that no, he was calling plays, he was doing this. Probably not. And now Josh Gaddis at Michigan, Harbaugh he's an offense guy, and he's also controlling, and he's been an NFL head coach in a Super Bowl. So I highly doubt that if Gaddis was like, no, this is my opinion, and Harbaugh doesn't like it, that they're going to do it the way that Gaddis wants it, right? So, yeah, I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan hasn't missed a step. Michigan's an incredible football team, top to bottom. They are an incredible football team.
And their offense looks exactly the same.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Your offense leaves, you don't miss a beat. In fact, you actually kind of look better than you did last year so far.
Yeah, well, and our offense doesn't look like Michigan's from last year, and theirs does. So what does that say?
Yeah, crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Hey, but we got
fire Gaddis and make Lane Kiffin our offensive coordinator immediately.
That's right.
Unlimited money and nothing matters. NCAA video game. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't even mind going to get Phil Longo from UNC.
Yeah, I actually really like him.
Phil Longo.
Yeah.
They've been scoring some points. North Carolina's good, dude.
But I know people will say the guy at Tennessee. I can't think of his name.
Heupel.
The coordinator.
Oh, then I don't have that one.
Yeah, but we interviewed him.
It's like his second year there. That dude's going to get a head coaching job somewhere after this year.
Yeah, but he's exactly what I'm talking about. I have learned my lesson. He might be the greatest thing since sliced bread in the future, but there is no way that Josh Heupel's an offense guy, right? I'm not hiring people like that anymore. obviously no one cares what I think, but
Oh, I see what you mean. Because so if that guy does come up for the candidacy, you're thinking, well, technically it's mostly Heupel anyway. So
yeah, like we've been burned too many times in the last few years, man. Like,
yeah.
cool, it could work out. I'm not saying that he's not good or whatever.
I mean, you just laid out three very good examples, and the reason they're very good is because they're the three most recent.
Yeah.
But Gaddis, Lashley, Enos, respectively, 1, 2, 3, like are all being shown to be maybe products of the system that they were coaching in at the time. Did Michigan make Gaddis? I mean, he's the Jordan. We talked about this like last week a little bit. We touched on it shortly. It was like, yeah, Gaddis won the Broyles Award. I'm not expecting him to win the Broyles Award again this year, but I'm still expecting you to be a really good a really good assistant coach. Like, I'm really expecting you to still be a good assistant coach.
Yeah, I was hoping that
That's like you win. It's like a football player wins the MVP one year, and it's like, well, I'm not expecting you to win the MVP every year, but I'm not expecting you to be an awful player the next year. I'm still expecting you to be good enough to make the All-Stars or the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, and he doubles as our wide receiver coach, and our wide receivers have been terrible besides Colby Young. You
mean the guy that he's only been involved with for like 3 months?
Yeah, coaching, right?
Why do guys get worse the more time they spend? I don't know.
You know who we should get as wide receivers coaches? Whoever is the wide receivers coach at Lackawanna College.
Yeah.
Call that guy.
Or Ohio State.
Clearly, yeah, right. Isn't that Brian Hartline? Isn't that who it is?
He's not terrible, that guy.
Yeah. He knows something or two. Knows a thing or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys see Jeremiah Swift tweet? It's same cryptic thing as last week, and it's like, man, like, I understand his frustration, but like, we need guys like him to come in here and help fix this issue, man.
No, but that's what Jordan, you and I, we talked about this last week too, where I said the same thing, where like, there are these kids, they want to be in Miami. They want to be Hurricanes. They like, in their heart and their soul, their genuine intentions, they want to be.
Yep.
But I also want to be an NFL player, bro. And Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, they're turning them out. Why am I going to go just because of my feelings and how I feel about the issue? I'm going to go to Miami where I'm going to waste my time. Or I could go to a football factory where they don't do anything except for turn out first-round picks.
Yeah, well, we've had some very
So make the business decision. You go play in Alabama where it's nothing but trees to look at for 3 years. You go pro, you make $1 million, and then you move back to Miami and live there in the summer anyway.
Yeah. And, we've had examples of kids that even verbalized that exact idea. Who was the wide receiver that was 5-star kid, came on a visit here, ended up going to Oklahoma? Everyone hates him because he is always tweeting about Miami every time we lose.
I think it was Jaden Hasselwood. Yeah, he was like, how do you lose to Duke? Well, today, how do you lose that badly to Duke?
but he verbalized that during his recruitment. He's like, he
said the players in the locker room don't have that mentality. Like, they don't care about winning.
And while I think it's super immature to tweet about us while he's over at Oklahoma, I think he probably fits exactly into what Petrie just said, in the sense that I'm sure he wanted to be here. Like, he's still following us clearly, like he wanted to be here. The problem, I guess, was just that he showed up and he's like, business decision, I'm going to Oklahoma. And Jalen Hurts did that exact same thing. I mean, it came out just recently that like Miami was his first choice. And then, he had a conversation with Nick Saban, and he said, Miami's my first choice, Maryland's my second choice. And, I also like Oklahoma. And he said, who has the best players? Oklahoma. Well,
who's the best
essentially, what's the business decision is what Nick Saban asked him. And
he's saying, you're not going to be here at Alabama and you're not going to play here at Alabama. But what makes you get to the NFL? Go to Oklahoma, have an amazing year, get drafted.
Yeah, second in Heisman voting. Probably wouldn't have happened here, to be honest.
No. He would have looked good. He would have looked, what he would have looked like? He would have looked like Malik Rozier 2.0.
Yeah.
just like real strong runner, very good, throws the ball decent, doesn't light the world on fire, but does what he's supposed to do a lot of the times. And it gets really people get so excited when the quarterback breaks an 8-yard run for a first down. So that's cool. It's like your center hitting a 3 in basketball. You're like, oh, that's awesome.
I haven't seen a center hit a 3 in about 9 years. So.
Oh, I forgot you following the Jazz. Rudy Gobert for a while there.
Yeah. Actually, Kelly Olynyk just hit 5 in one night last night. So that was weird.
Yeah. I'm a Heat fan, so I've seen it, but don't get used to it.
Yeah, right. I'm hoping Kelly Olynyk's a Laker by the end of next week. So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up.
I think so. Hour 10 now.
I'm cooking my world famous chili right now. So
I'm about to go cook a big old bowl.
All right, boys.
Miami tears.
Yeah, I'm tired of dwelling on this team, man. I love chopping it up the way that we do, but sometimes it's like, man, do I want to talk about that crap?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've been bothered this entire show. I've just been sitting here just dwelling on and thinking of it. It's
doing.
Yeah,
well, I'll probably see y'all after we win at Virginia next week, though.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan, next week, I mean, we can talk more offline about it. I got 2 really good buddies, some of my closest friends. They're super anti-Miami, so it'd be a little bit of a weird show. They're very heavily deep involved in the back staff of FSU. They're both alums, both players.
Cool.
One of them works directly for FSU, but they're good friends. That they talk a lot about the rebuild. How Norvell's rebuilding, and they're honest about like things that Miami needs to do and whatnot. So I think they'd be excited to potentially get on the show here in the next couple of weeks.
That would be a great opportunity because next week after Virginia, then the following week is Florida State.
Yeah, when we record next week, it'll be FSU week. So let's we'll touch base about that. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you go check out About the Fans. Get yourself some gear before the FSU game. I'm actually going to my first Hurricanes game for FSU, November 5th. So
let's go.
Very pumped. Yep.
For you, don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, I have it penciled in as a loss, but I'm gonna enjoy it.
Make sure you hit up Co. I'll make sure you have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Co's a great guy. Okay, thanks everyone.
Take care.
Go Canes.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Take care.